Welcome to Prayer and Prozac. I am Shari Ponder, and this is the podcast to help you understand that faith and therapy can coexist together. Or can it? Let's see now as we attempt to challenge your minds and open your hearts. Welcome back to Prayer and Prozac. Today's topic, hey big head and other quarantine boos. We're here with our co-host, Michelle.
Hi, everybody.
And Kieyana.
Hey, everyone.
And we have a special treat for you today. We have Tiffanie Davis Henry. Woo woo! Let's give it up for Dr. Henry. Listen, y'all not ready for this today, okay? She is a licensed professional counselor, a sex therapist with a specialty in human sexuality. She's been in private practice, they're not ready, since 2006 and has been featured on some amazing shows and been a consultant. My Strange Addiction, The Revolution, All About Sex, Steve Harvey, The Doctors, and our beloved Essence magazine. So listen, we are going to jump right in. I know you're not ready, but we're going anyway. So my first question is for Kieyana, because I'm not a millennial. But what in the world is What's Up Big Head?
Oh my God!
All of them ain't big. Just to start right there, I know all of those heads ain't big. But anyway, What's Up Big Head? What are they talking about?
What's Up Big Head is kind of like, hey stranger. It's like flirting a little bit if you haven't talked to somebody in a while, especially in this quarantine. Like you probably thinking about somebody that you was talking to a long time ago, and you just hitting them up. You think about them, wondering if they think about you.
So this big head thing is not even a guarantee. It's a shot in the dark.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Right.
So this is the title that you've given. So since I've been quarantined, being an amazing single woman, I have got several text messages recently. Hey, how you doing? This is a hey big head right there, huh? And so what does that make me when I respond? If they're the big head, what am I if I fall for this craziness? Well, I'm like, you might have a shot. That's what you're saying. They're like, you might have a shot. So they might have. So if I text back, then they know that they have a shot to get with me just through quarantine.
Right.
But
you're their potential quarantine boo.
I'm the potential quarantine boo. Yes. Y'all remember Ghost?
Mm-hmm.
Molly, you're in danger, girl. That's the problem. What happens after quarantine? Who's the girl before?
Ooh.
Or who's the girl you with? Ghost. You said Ghost. So I mean, I think that it's interesting because it is a shot in the dark, and it is someone just kind of reaching out to see if you're going to respond. And so we're not calling to see or texting you to see like how you're doing. They don't care. They want to know, are you awake? If I actually call you, will you pick up? And can I potentially slide on over there?
Ooh,
right quick. Right. It ain't got nothing to do with how you doing. They don't care how you doing.
You know what?
They want to know how you gonna be doing in about 30 minutes.
Thank you. And they want to make me do better than what they think I'm doing.
Yeah. Sure.
I think the key to what you said is that with a hey big head, because see, and I'm speaking from my perspective as a woman, but women hey big head men too, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you could actually be the one that don't care about people.
You could just be bored.
And you know what? Yeah, it's not even that. I think when you get those texts, like, it's not even that you don't care about them. It's that, you know, mama got needs right now. And I'm going to see who can fulfill these needs in a timely manner.
So in other words, you care about yourself.
Really? Yes, a lot. She's got some needs, or he's got some needs that need to be met. And so I'm going to, because usually when they send a hey big head, they send out about 5.
Oh.
Devil.
And here I am thinking I'm the only big head.
Not everybody answers.
So whoever responds, and you all said that, so if I do it as the, and I'm going to say perpetrator, there's no judgment here. There's no judgment on prayer and Prozac. I'm just going to give it a title. If I'm the one that's sending the message, like you said, I could be bored. I could be lonely. I could have just a sexual need, which could just be medicinal. Since we're talking prayer and Prozac, we're going to put prayer in the pocket for just a second. It could just be medicinal. I could just need some company. So everybody's okay with that. So y'all are saying this is what's common and everybody's okay. But is there a problem here with attachment with the emotional and spiritual beyond just whatever the physical immediate need is? Or just because everybody says it's acceptable, if everybody knows what it is up front, is it okay?
So in non-quarantine times, right, if you get this text, it really, to answer your question, it really does depend on what time of day this text comes in. Because if it comes in at 9 a.m., you might actually want to know, hey, what you doing? What's going on? You know, you working? How's it going? How's the new job? Blah, blah, blah. But when this comes at 11:35 p.m., what you think I'm doing and what you want me to be doing are the two questions. Because at 11:35, most of us are sleeping or getting ready to go to sleep. And what you may or may not want is for me not to go to sleep, but to do something else at this time. So it really does depend on the time of day that the text is coming in.
Got you. And now, are we washing our hands? Are we sanitizing? I mean, because if you sent this out to 5 people, now I have some other concerns. I don't need COVID in my private.
That's where it'll end up to if you sending it out and see who's coming in, who's reeling in. And here I am thinking, hey, big head, I'm the only one.
Oh, child, no. Oh, no. Because essentially, like, if you weren't the only one, like, I wouldn't be waiting until, 11 o'clock at night to be texting you. I would have called you earlier to see what you were doing.
You would.
Right.
I'm trying to see who all's awake right now. See who's going to text me back. Because I got to itch and scratch.
That's a great.
But then it goes back to what I think Shari said. So this is less about an emotional attachment or caring and more about trying to get what I need to get during these quarantine times.
That's my thought. Is that your thought, Kieyana?
Yeah, I would say there's been times where I've been just bored and I'm like, okay, like we can chill and
don't tell all your business.
I'm a millennial.
So
Mama,
if it was somebody I was talking to before and I liked them or whatever, then yeah, it could be an emotional attachment. Like, oh, this person's thinking about me. But then sometimes you just bored and you just want to chill.
So Dr. Tiffanie, is this just a straight booty call? Is this what us Generation X call booty calls and our millennial is calling it, hey, big head? Are we complicating this? Is this just a booty call?
I mean, it could be. It depends on how you respond. Again, like if you get the hey, big head text and never respond, then they've gotten their answer that, nah, you ain't coming over here. Or no, I'm not trying to hear that. I've moved on or whatever. But if you respond to, I mean, think about it in everyday life. If you respond to a random person saying, hey, big head, like, would you respond to that? If you're
not a random person.
If you're walking down the street and somebody yells out, hey, big head.
Oh, no.
You're not responding to that. So why would you respond to it any other time? Unless, oh, he's so cute. Oh, he just teasing me. Oh, okay. Well, let me have him.
No, even at my age now. No.
Yeah.
If you want to come over, if you want to holler at me, do not call me "Hey, big head" at all. Okay, at all. Maybe holler and say what you're wearing, what you got on.
What's the difference?
Right. Don't call me no big head.
Okay. It's a self-esteem thing. I got you. It's not about the message, it's the delivery. So you saying you would go if you got
to be a little bit more sexy, a little bit more smooth. I like a little bit more caressing.
And Michelle, to your point, I think that it is definitely generational. Like, I don't think folks in older generations would ever think to holler at somebody in this way. And I think those in, younger generations, it's not that deep, So it's definitely generational, and like we all are coming at it from a totally different, but I think it is just like, I just want to holler at this person, see if they bite, see if I can get in the door, see if I can come over, see if they're trying to, if they still mad at me. Right. That's another hey big head text too. Y'all broke up or you mad at somebody, and then they shoot that text over to see if you still mad.
Well, I'm gonna need the OGs to start teaching these little young G's.
Okay.
They ain't trying to hear.
Some of the OGs don't have it either. They hate big head too. So, but enough about me. So my question was, in the quarantine, are people playing or praying? Because so many people are talking about all of the sadness and all of the stress of being quarantined. But Dr. Tiffanie, as a sex therapist, I have seen and read where pornography has gone up and the sale of sex toys has gone up. And so what does this really look like? I mean, on the one hand, everybody's like, oh my gosh, I'm praying. But that don't sound like praying. That sounds like playing. So what does that look like and feel like in a time like this? What's the reality of this sexual rise being quarantined?
So the reality is that in times like this, there are a few, I call them recession-proof businesses that people can be in. And wine and spirits, that's one, because no matter how broke you are, no matter how much of a recession there is, people will always buy their liquor, they drink. They will always have their drink. Another recession-proof business is porn and sex toys. And right now, you're right, there is this increased market for those. And here's another one that's like peeking its head out, right? No pun intended. Right now, I think self-care kind of things people are doing a lot more of too. So like skincare, you're seeing people do their own like facials and all of those kind of things. But in particular to what we're talking about, you're going to see a lot of people exploring porn, exploring erotica, exploring sex toys, talking, learning, and figuring sex out. Partially with the sex toys because they may be single at this time. They may not have been in a relationship prior to quarantine, and it's not like, because of quarantine and because we are in this pandemic, they can't go out and find a mate or date in a way that they normally would. So they had sexual urges and desires before, so they are going to want to fulfill them. And whereas they may have done that with someone that they had a maybe not a long-term relationship with, but they were doing what they were doing, right now they can't do that. And so I always say with masturbation and in particular sex toys, it is the safest sex that you can have. If you're going to have it, it's the safest sex you can have. There is no risk of pregnancy. There is no risk of sexually transmitted infection. So in a way, this is the safest sex that they can have without exposing themselves to coronavirus. So yeah, it is increasing right now, and there is a lot of that going on. I think what also is happening is the quarantine has forced us from a relationship perspective to really examine those things that are wrong in our relationships. So rather than for some, rather than addressing those issues that are within the relationship, they're turning away from those things and going towards something else. What I see a lot in my practice and in talking with folks is obviously like divorce rates going up, or people deciding definitively, I really don't want to be in this person. I have been trapped with this person. Now I see the actual person that I'm in relationship with, and I don't like this person. And so because of that, they're moving away from each other. People are moving away. What I've been encouraging folks to do, because this is a time that will make or break their relationship. And I think that we have to make sure that if there are things that are starting to be red flags or things that are being highlighted right now, it is a time to actually address those things. Those things are coming up because this is a time that we really do need to start looking at them. Because what a wonderful thing it would be if at the end of this quarantine process, and granted, we don't know how long this process is going to be, right? At the end of this process, if we actually worked on the things that were bothering us or that were wrong in this during this time, if we use the time to really work on those things rather than say, I don't like that, I'm done, I'm out. How much better the relationship would be at the end of this, how much more bomb the sex would be at the end of this, because we've actually worked and fixed on those things that we've been sweeping under the rug all this time. The quarantine is forcing us to really look at what we actually have. Before, couples, whether it's one person in the relationship or both, were able to, spend at least 8 hours a day away from each other. So even if I was mad at you in the morning, by the time I got back in the evening, maybe we've talked once during the day. Maybe you sent flowers. Maybe I just needed to clear my head, talk to my girlfriends, or get my focus away from whatever it was I was mad at. By the time I come back home, I can actually think about and process and work through whatever it is. Now you don't have that away time. And that's what's really frustrating for people that are used to having some alone time. They're forced to deal with it now because this person is not going nowhere. Y'all both trapped. Y'all both gonna have to deal with it. And that's been really, really challenging for people. But I say to a lot of folks, if you can muscle through and actually work on the stuff instead of just trying to, walk away and not work on it, use this time wisely, work on those issues, you'll come out of this far better than you went in.
Awesome. So thank you for that. I hear two things here, and I'm glad we're making a shift. The first is that the sexual tension is going to be a little normal. Not just because someone is flirting, not just because you're trapped in the house. If I'm hearing you correctly, just not even just because anything sexual is going to be recession proof, but also just the need for touch, the need for want, the need for a caress is a natural thing. But what it sounds like you're saying, and you can correct me, is that there are two different things happening. You have the physical, but then also the emotional that's dealt with in this time.
Absolutely. So intimacy is emotional closeness and physical closeness. A lot of times and especially men, when they hear intimacy, they're thinking sex, right? And most of us think sex when we talk about intimacy, but true intimacy is emotional closeness and physical closeness. There's a difference, a big difference in the way that men and women will view intimacy and getting more close. Women tend to need emotional closeness in order to feel like being physical, whereas men need physical closeness in order to feel emotionally connected. So if you're a person that vibes on the 5 love languages, that theory is just basically that the other person's needs, you give them what they need instead of what you need at that time, and then both of your needs are met. The same thing is true in terms of intimacy. If you are with a partner who needs to have sex in order to feel loved, it doesn't matter how much you talk to them. It doesn't matter how much you say you love them. If you're not showing them through the physical act, they tend to feel as though you don't love them because you pull away or you don't initiate sex, or we haven't had sex in X number of days. So you must be pulling away because you don't love me. And it's not that, maybe I'm stressed out and I got a lot on my mind and I would really like to be able to process this and talk out loud, but you don't want to talk to nobody. So we can't have sex because I'm mad at you now because you want to address my emotional issues.
I'm definitely not doing it now.
Right. And so for us as women, we have to understand too, or men have to understand that for women, in order for us to get there where you want us to go physically, we definitely need you to like sit down and talk to us if we have something on our mind. And it's not about fixing it. It's just allowing us to vent or talk or work through the issues verbally. So if we can get people to really address the needs of each one of their partners, I think they'll be better, the relationships will be a lot better. But women tend to want that emotional closeness and then the physical, whereas men, like after having sex, they want to talk all, but I'm trying to go to sleep now. Right. Now you want to talk. Now you got something to say. Now you want to tell me how much you love me and how much you appreciate me and all this stuff. Like, where was that before? Because that's what I needed before.
Right.
So with that being said, what do you say to the woman or man who is feeling lonely, even if they're quarantined with their significant other? So maybe not getting the physical need or getting the physical need and not getting the emotional connection. And so if I'm trapped in the house with you, some people have probably thought we have more time together. But I would like to think the loneliest person in the world is sitting in a house with someone that they're not getting that love from.
Right. There are plenty of people prior to quarantine that were in marriages and felt lonely. There are plenty of women who in marriages felt like single moms because they were doing it. So it's not, quarantine didn't make this a new issue. It just made it more pronounced.
Yeah.
Whatever was happening before, we see it more clearly now.
Right.
And that's why I say, like, we just really have to address the issues because the issues have been there. This ain't new. It's not because of quarantine. Now we see that, we're arguing more. We have different ideas of how to spend money, or you don't take care of me emotionally, or all of these things. That wasn't happening before.
Right.
Now I can't escape it. I had 8 hours a day to escape it. I don't have that now. So I can either say, okay, we're done, the relationship is over, or I can actually work on it.
Right.
And so you have to really ask yourself during this time, do you really want to work on your issues or not? Or are you just going to move to the next relationship? Because I tell you this, you move to the next relationship, these issues are going to follow you.
Absolutely.
They're going to follow.
Absolutely. I want to circle back really quick, Dr. Tiffanie. I want to talk a little bit about and touch on. So as a marriage and family therapist, one of the things that concerns me greatly at this time is the increase of the use of pornography. Now, I see pornography from the standpoint where it can kill a sexual relationship in a marriage. Mm-hmm. And when I say that, barring medical conditions, different things that may be occurring in the sexual life of a otherwise healthy couple. Can you talk a little bit about the increase of pornography and how that can harm the emotional well-being or the sexual health of otherwise normal situation?
Yeah, and you know what? It's funny because I would love, I'm going to talk about that, but I also want to get Kieyana's take on it too, because one of the trends that we see with pornography, especially with millennials and younger folks, is really not knowing how to navigate relationships, actual relationships, because they've grown up in an age where they had so much access to images of pornographic and erotic images, way more than we did growing up. We had, magazines, which had to be purchased, which we had to sneak from somewhere. Maybe a video or something, but then you had to pay for the video. You know what I mean? Whereas this generation, all they have to do is open up their computer and go online. And what that leads to is a lot of folks growing up with porn and not really figuring out or not really understanding, kind of overestimating what their bodies are capable of. So many young men believe that they should be hard for 30 minutes because that's how it is when they watch a porn. So they start at age, 19, 20, 21, taking Viagra, taking Cialis when they don't have erectile issues. But that is how porn stars remain hard for so long, is they take these drugs in order to perform for that.
Girls on for 30 minutes. Oh my goodness.
The video lasts for 30 minutes. They got to be hard for 30 minutes. That's what you pay for. Women, on the other hand, are looking at, girls that are coming up are looking at these women in videos and thinking, oh, this is what sexual pleasure is. Right. This is what my face should look like. This is what my body should look like. This is how I'm supposed to perform and move. When these people get into actual relationships, they are blown away because their body doesn't function the way that they thought it should, because their model has always been what they see on TV or what they see in porn, right? And so they're doing things in order to enhance that, when really, and they're finding that they don't necessarily like sex because sex isn't necessarily what they thought it would be. We would, we would do ourselves a better service if parents actually talk to kids about sex and sexuality, which is a whole nother topic. But we have to start having better conversations with our kids and youngsters about sex, sexuality, and what normal and typical function is. We do have to have conversations with them, as crazy as it seems, about sexual pleasure, what it is and what it is not. We need to be having conversations about consent and sexual exploitation. We need to have all of these conversations, not because we want them to do something, but I think that we have to normalize their expectations of what sexual relationships are. So as it relates to this, porn, if porn was a problem for you before, it's probably even more of a problem now within the pandemic, because people are relying on it more, just like alcohol. People are relying on alcohol way more right now because they're bored, because they have time, because they have access to it when they don't have access to other things, and they need stress relief. And so they're coming up with a lot of different vices right now in order to kind of soothe the anxiety that they're feeling. And my advice always is to address what's underlying. Some people turn to porn because of sexual challenges that they already are having in their relationship. Like, I want to do things that maybe my partner doesn't want to do. I really want to try new positions. My partner ain't used to it. I'm turned on by certain things that my partner isn't. And so on the other side of that spectrum, they're stimulated by things that maybe aren't happening within their relationship. And part of that is because they have kind of desensitized themselves. In the doctoral program that I did, one of the things that we did very, very early on was we watched a lot of what lay people would probably call pornographic videos, but we watched a lot of images in the early part of that program. And part of it was desensitization. So a lot of stuff, like, now I look at it with more of a clinical eye. Right. I do, like, really as for a turn on. And sometimes when you overexpose yourself to things like that, you start to not be very turned on by it. So you have to up it and up it and up it. And I think just like with porn and with sex toys, sometimes you have to move away from it in order to ground yourself in reality, because you don't have access to porn stars. You don't have access to a penis that vibrates and rotates. So if you are reliant on that all the time for your orgasm, it'll be really, really hard to have one.
Yeah. For a rude awakening. Kieyana, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I definitely agree with everything Dr. Tiffanie has said. I've also taken some sexual classes, like human sexuality classes, and it's the same thing with the pornography. It like builds this fantasy world so that when you get into your situation is all these heightened expectations, and it makes the experience like, not fun. So I definitely agree with that. And then also too, with the sex toys, a machine and the real thing are going to do two different things. So that also builds that heightened expectation as well. So I definitely agree with everything Dr. Tiffanie has said.
And let me add to that, because I'm a huge advocate of sex toys and recommending certain ones. And there are some that I will recommend to couples that want to introduce sex toys into their lovemaking, into their sexual play, that I think work really well. So if you have one person in a relationship that wants to start or wants to use sex toys while you're having sex, a lot of times guys don't want to be left out, but they also don't want to have to compete.
Right.
And they can't compete with a vibrating dildo.
Yeah.
They just can't. And so I recommend things like vibrating cock rings that they place on the penis, because then it makes the penis for ladies feel like it's a sex toy because it vibrates. And then the guys feel like they have a power tool. And so it's a completely different sensation. It's fantastic. People love those. And then there are also couples toys where they're inserted into the vagina while you're having sex. So you've got clitoral stimulation, G-spot stimulation, penile stimulation, and it's bomb. So there are ways to incorporate that where you're not leaving somebody out and they don't feel like they have to overperform in order to get the job done. And they love it.
So how does that work for people that are single, though, that are using toys and then they like come together? Like if they're in a dating stage, but they're not necessarily like in a relationship as a couple?
I always say, like, you got to try different things, because and remember, there is a difference between a dildo and a vibrator. Not all dildos don't vibrate. So those toys that don't vibrate, if you're trying to kind of walk it back a little bit before you have a relationship with a guy who obviously isn't going to vibrate, dildos can be a good transition for you, so that you kind of get back to what normal sex is. But remember, intimacy is physical closeness and emotional closeness. You don't have to have an emotional connection with a vibrator. You don't.
Right.
But it does take work. And if what you want is true intimacy, you're going to have to give a little to get a little. And you're going to have to have that emotional connection piece in those relationships for it to work and for the sex to be amazing like you want it to be.
Right.
Now, I've got to jump in here because I love all of this. And my background is actually counseling psychology. But the show is Prayer and Prozac. And I feel like we've talked a lot about the Prozac. But we got to circle back to the praying. Now, because I'm speaking on behalf, and I'm not saying me, I'm more non-traditional, and I'm just a little shy away of being a millennial. But I can tell you right now, anyone who is churchy, who has grown up traditional, probably cut off this podcast 15 minutes ago. Okay,
yeah, but they're gonna sneak and cut it back on.
They gonna sneak. They are gonna sneak. But right now, everybody on here is going to hell. So let's circle back to, we've done the physical, we've done the emotional. What is the spiritual? What is God saying in this quarantine with these three elements? Because, and I love how Kieyana asked about being single. And I'm going to tell you, as a woman that's experienced, don't nobody want to be porn star every time they connect with somebody. But biblically, the marriage bed is undefiled. So if you are married, the sky's the limit if typically you're not bringing a third party in to confuse everybody, because that usually doesn't work. But more importantly, if both parties agree. So as long as there's someone that's not, if it's not problematic, then it's okay. And that's text. Now, of course, we don't want, as biblical leaders, we don't want you to use porn. We don't want you to have extra people. And not because that's not your thing, but just because of all the things you just said. Does it get confusing when your wife doesn't perform or your spouse doesn't perform like these people that you see, and then the disappointment comes in, and now your wife or your husband is not giving up. That's the thinking there. But the main thing is the marriage bed is undefiled if both parties in the marriage are down. As long as, and you've alluded to this, Dr. Tiffanie, as long as he's not asking me to do something that really I don't want to do, or she's asking him to do something that really he doesn't want to do, then that's where it becomes harmful, which God doesn't endorse. But for me, talking to singles, and Kieyana raised that question too, the emotional attachment, because again, old school is going to say, you need to abstain. You need to wait. You need to not fornicate. Now, I've had this argument with people forever because they're like, my Bible don't have fornicate. I'm like, that's because you read the message. If you pick up King James, it's going to say fornicate. But can you talk about that piece from your angle? And again, there's no judgment here for anybody who's listening. And there is no way to out-sin or outdo anything that God cannot cover in grace and help you heal from. But I want us to also talk about what y'all think about the spiritual piece and what God could be saying to those who are hurting, to those who are lonely, whether that's emotionally or physically. What's the spiritual connection here?
One thing I want to say really quick before I defer back to Kieyana or Dr. Tiffanie or even you, Shari, is that one of the things that we don't want to do right now in quarantine is to use sex or hey big head or booty call to mask the loneliness, to mask the stuff that we're feeling as singles, right? So I know that you defer to singles, but there are married people who are lonely. So loneliness doesn't have a marital status on it. But I know one of the things that singles are really dealing with is the sense of isolation and loneliness. And one thing that I know is that we sometimes will, and Dr. Tiffanie talked about it. She talked about looking to alcohol and drinking a little bit more, or, sexing a little bit more. Those things will just cover up the overall, it'll cover up the spiritual illness, the emotional illness. It's not going to fix it. It's the Prozac. It's the Prozac to the prayer. So one of the things that we have to think about is if there's this strong desire to, go out and, hey, big head 5 or 6 or 7 people and see, who responds. And there's a larger issue here. There's a larger problem here, and it's bigger than a dildo or a vibrator, and I think one of the things that we have to do is use this quarantine to be introspective, to be insightful. So loneliness really is a complex emotion. It's an emotion of, feeling disconnected, right? So we're disconnected from people. And if you're trying to use anything, whether it's sex or alcohol or, booty calling or big headed folk, you're going to come out of quarantine probably a little bit worse than you went in, addicted to some things. And Dr. Tiffanie, you're going to have to get some more hours because they're going to come looking for you.
I'm closing. I'm going to close up. I'm just going to shut the door.
Good. That's good, Michelle. So all of you all have a spiritual relationship with God. You have a connection to the divine. So I would like to hear from each of you, and then we'll let Dr. Tiffanie close, but I would like to have each of you tell me what that looks like spiritually to try to heal the loneliness, to try to investigate it. Of course, prayer is always there. Again, I'm going to always go to, and I've mentioned this before, we don't often tap into all that God has to offer. We don't always, we look to things to fulfill us, but we haven't prayed fully. We haven't read scripture. We haven't consulted with godly counsel. We have not fasted. We have not taken the time to journal or really sit still and let God speak and download into us what it is that we need to be doing to even try to heal. Because while I'm down with everything we've said, I also know that there are some holes that only you and God can fill. And if you are not even open up to God for God to do that, as Michelle said, you might come out worse than you did going in. And I do believe that God is trying to give a message to us in this quarantine season. So, of course, prayer is always going to be, for me, a starting point. But what would you all add to that for the divine connection on how to address this type of loneliness during the season?
For me, whenever I'm feeling empty or lost or needing clarity, I shut down everything as far as like social media and like friends and things like that, just putting my phone on do not disturb. And I pray and I meditate. I sit in front of my mirror because I feel like that kind of helps me connect with myself more. I may like burn some Palo Santo or some sage to kind of just get me in that mood. But I think it's important to sometimes be with ourselves, and that's sometimes the hardest thing to do.
Kieyana, mm-hmm. What is Palo Santo?
Palo Santo is a piece of wood. It's a piece of wood. I'm sorry. Yes, Palo Santo is a piece of wood. It's a sweet smelling wood, and it helps with calming and balancing. Very similar to like the benefits of sage, but it's more of like, you know. But yeah,
I didn't mean to cut you off. You just getting a little fancy.
No. It's good. I love it. I've used it before too. It's
yes,
good.
Very calming. But yeah. So sometimes the hardest thing to do is to be with yourself, but sometimes that's what you have to do, and working through the problem and not past the problem.
Mm-hmm. All right, Jill.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay, so I think I went really quick before. I'll let Dr. Tiffanie finish it. I think you and Kieyana said some very key and important things. If you are in a place where you find yourself feeling lonely, you find yourself being anxious or antsy, you've got to sit still with yourself. One of the hardest things that I know for anyone to do is introspection, right? It's very hard to sit down and be introspective about what is this about. A couple of days ago, I did a Facebook Live about the 2020 graduates and moms who are, you know, freaking out over not having these traditional ceremonies for 2020 graduates. And part of the things that I realized is we internalize so many things that happen to us. You know, your husband walks in and doesn't pay attention. Your pastor passes you. Your friend forgets to call you. We internalize it. I mean, we make it about us and our own worth. So I need for you to sit down with some Palo Santo, which I will be buying today, with your journal. And I need for you to journal what you are feeling and try to connect. Sometimes people are going through things that have nothing to do with you, babe. Okay? Mm-hmm. That is one way you can start to deconstruct this stuff. And don't call anybody big head.
That is a nerve for you, boy.
All right, Dr. Tiffanie, please close us out.
Well, I think for me, I see it's as devastating as the pandemic has been, and as devastating as coronavirus has been for so many. There are some ways where I've seen this as a complete and total blessing. I have seen people who I knew in December declared they were getting a divorce in the new year, find resolution and come back together, and now find that they love each other once again, and their marriage is so much stronger because they were forced to be quarantined. I've seen people who really just could not get their finances in order, was shopping up a storm and doing the most, and this quarantine has really made them full focus on getting their financial house in order and really budgeting better and being very mindful of their spending. So it hasn't been a complete wash. Yes, we have lost tons of lives. And yes, it is horrific what it has done, especially to Black and Brown communities. But I want people to really start to take a look at the blessings that have come out of quarantine, and the things that we have been forced to focus on. And some of us are being forced and challenged right now. We don't recognize it as that, but forced to really work on and fix the issues that are going on within our relationships. And yes, you can quit. That is an option. But I think what you should be doing with this time is really doing an assessment of what's wrong of all of those things that you've been sweeping under the rug and starting to address those issues. And you may come out with it and come out afterwards and find that, hey, nah, this isn't going to work. We're too far gone. But you also may find that we can work it out, or these things aren't really as important given the state of the world as we are now. So with that, one thing that I always encourage couples to do in terms of what as they're negotiating their relationships and what they like, what they dislike, especially in relation to intimacy, I ask people to come up with an always, sometimes, and never list. And couples do this together. You can do this by yourself too. Have it prepared for when you do boo up with someone. But always, these are things that I will always do, no matter what. I'm always going to be down to do this. You might get it on your birthday. It might happen on Father's Day, but don't be expecting this every day, because that ain't going to happen. And then there are some things that are just non-negotiable. I'm never going to do it. Don't care that you like it so much. If you like it that much, do it to yourself. I won't do it. I encourage people to come up with their always, sometimes, and never list. Share them with their partners and just talk about it. Like if I already know that there's something that is really aligned for you, I'm not going to be badgering you and asking you for it. But if I know that, she can be coerced, she can be talked into it a little bit. If I just do X, Y, and Z, you might find yourself getting some of the things that you want checked off your own list, just so that you can get more of those sometime kind of things in your intimacy checklist. So that is what I have to offer. And I appreciate the time that you guys are spending with me today.
Thank you. How does one know when they need to go to a therapist that specializes in sexuality?
So a sex therapist is someone who is trained to deal with sexual issues, but we're also very much trained to deal with mental health issues. What I tend to tell people is that sex is what usually gets people in the door for me. But when I peel back the layers, and this is why it's so important to have a good mental health background and a good mental health professional treating you. Sex a lot of times is a secondary issue. Usually there's some underlying anxiety or communication issue or depression or something else going on that's making the sex bad. So what I'm looking for is, if you're having some sort of sexual dysfunction or sexual challenge, okay, well, why is that happening? Why have you, I get women who say, I've never had an orgasm in my life. Okay. Well, are you having it? Well, yeah, I do have it with sex toys, but just not with my husband. Oh, okay. Well, that's very interesting, because now I know you can have it. Your body is working just fine. You don't have it regularly with your partner. So what is it about your partner that makes it hard for you to orgasm? Or are you orgasms or letting go, right? Do you have challenges with letting go in other areas of your life? So I'm looking at the sexual issue, but more of a symptom of another problem. And so when you have some sexual challenges, know that I'm going to start getting in all of your business, not just the sex stuff, which is uncomfortable enough for a lot of people to talk about, but know that I'm uncovering every rock to make sure that when you leave my office, you're not just having sex, but you're having good sex. And you're not just having good sex, you're having great sex.
Amen. Amen. Y'all, Dr. Tiffanie, thank you, girl.
Thank you. That was awesome.
We are so grateful and thankful for you for joining us today. And this was amazing, great insight. I want you all to know that with Prayer and Prozac, we believe that all things start in faith, and that with prayer, God heals in many ways. And so if you need to see a therapist for your mental or sexual concerns, by all means, look that information up, and always seek professional help. God wants you to get all the extra help you need. So we thank Dr. Tiffanie. Listen, if you need to follow her, not need to, this is what you need to do. You just need to follow her. Follow her at Dr. Tiffanie, and that's Tiffanie at Dr. Tiffanie TV on Instagram, at Dr. Tiffanie TV, or on her website, drtiffanie.com. We love you. We thank you. Listen, Dr. Tiffanie is also a woman of God. So I'm going to tell you, you can have good God and good sex. Come on, somebody up in here. In my house, yes, God, it's happening. So listen, we thank you. We will see you or talk to you next week. Continue to follow us on Instagram at Prayer and Prozac. If you're on Facebook, join our group, Prayer and Prozac. And we look forward to connecting with you the next time. And in all things, remember,